Good morning, all. We welcome you to workshop of web development by Embark. You guys must be intimidated by all the new courses and skills everyone has achieved during the lockdown period. We know it's exciting for you, and we have a perfect opportunity for you to have an insight on web development through this awesome workshop. Scratch in this workshop. So, if you don't have any basic knowledge about this interest and enthusiasm, then you should definitely attend this. I guarantee you'll find this workshop fun, interesting, and helpful in every way possible. There are three speakers today for this workshop: Anshul Bam, Gunemat Kaur Dhinsa, Aditya Madan. They are co-members of Developers Student Club and pursuing CSE second year from VIT Fellow. Now, guys, stick around till the end for an amazing surprise for you. At the end of the workshop, Tejashri will brief you with the social media challenge. Now, I hand over to Anshul to continue with the session.
Hey guys, I'll just share my screen first. Yep. So again, good morning to everyone. Welcome to this event. And before I start with the formalities of this event, I would just like to share something with you guys as a student. So when I first joined my college, I was overwhelmed by everything around me, just like most of the freshers here are. Like the latest advancements in technology and looking at my seniors do awesome stuff, and to find something that you're interested in doing is not as difficult as it seems. So I'll just suggest you guys, like, take one step at a time in becoming a developer, and try out different domains. You should try out app development, web development. You can try out Arduino, and then whatever suits you the best, you can start going deeper in that particular field. So you should explore a little bit of every domain, as I said. And today we'll be exploring web development as a domain. So you guys are excited to build your own portfolio website? I assume you all are. So, well, before I start let me introduce myself to you. I am Anshul Bam, and I'm a core committee member of the Developer Students Club at VIT Vellore. I'm a sophomore with a keen interest in web development and digital marketing. I have made several websites and completed my internship with Joe Stocks as well. I even worked on the official government website of Digital BAT. Over to you, Gurnamat.
Hi everyone, I'm Gurnemat and I'm also a core committee member, specifically a manager at DSC VIT. I'm also a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and as you heard before, I'm a sophomore at VIT Vellore. So as for front end, I really enjoy front end, and I've done quite a few projects, and I dabble here and there, and I've also done an internship, as you can see here. Apart from front end, I'm really interested in public speaking and politics, all that jazz. So yeah, that's all about me, and I really hope you take away something, and this workshop inspires you to get into development at the end of the day.
It's great to hear. Now, today, Gurnamat and I will be helping you the basics of web development as well as code along with you guys to make the portfolio website. So we will also show you guys how to deploy the website using GitHub pages that you coded yourselves. And I hope everyone is excited to learn. And we will even teach you some tricks as we code along. We'll make sure that the session will be far more fun than our online classes. So let's get started with the journey of becoming an awesome developer. So before we start and get into the technicalities of web development, uh, let us know why it's crucial to have your own portfolio website. Now, an online portfolio website will boost your visibility and presence on the internet. Building a portfolio website certainly allows you to share and showcase your work, skills, and experience with all the employers you'd like to work or intern for. Just imagine how impressive it would be when you type your name on Google search and your website would be listed in one of the search results. And to be honest, you can get a lot of freelance projects as well using a portfolio. If you create your own personal brand or using a portfolio website, you can get a lot of freelance projects as well. So this is going to be the roadmap of our entire session. First, we'll set up a VS Code. I hope everyone has downloaded that. It's basically an environment where we'll be coding. Then we learn the basics of HTML and CSS, the very basic HTML and CSS. And along with that, we'll code our website. Then we learn a bit of intermediate CSS, and we'll complete the website till the fourth section, which is the build section. Finally, we'll learn the basics of Git and GitHub, and we'll deploy our website so that everyone has a URL for their website that they can share. And just make sure that you guys are hydrated and just grab a snack because it's going to be a long session, but indeed a fun one. So yeah, so this is the design that we'll be following today. You'll have your picture, then you'll have your name. You can add a small bio about yourself. We'll have our social media icons along with a button. Now, and when you click the button, it will redirect you to a form where people can, write their message, their name, and if they submit, you'll get that form. And when we scroll down from the first page, we'll have two columns over here, two sections particularly, which is going to be education and work experience. You can add more sections if you want, like certifications, hobbies, interests, etc., etc. Okay, so yeah. Now we require some extensions, and we need to set up a VS Code. So just in case, if I'll just show you guys how to set up your VS Code. Just a minute. Just create a new tab. Now you can just go ahead and type VS Code download, and the first result, you just click on it, and depending on your operating system, whether you're using Mac, Linux, or Windows, you can just download the preferred version. Now once you've downloaded that, just go ahead on your desktop and create a new folder and name it anything you want. Okay, you can just create, just write, portfolio website for now. I've just created one for myself here, and just create a new window now. Just open a new window on VS Code. Yeah, it'll take a second. Yeah. I hope my screen is visible to you guys. Yeah, and just a quick suggestion, like if you think I'm going very fast or if you think I'm going very slow, you can just change the playback speed. Okay, yeah. Now once you've opened a new window on VS Code, just go ahead to this small navbar section over here on the left hand side and click on the Explorer section, and you can just open the folder that you created right now. Yeah, so on my desktop, name is fine. Okay, I'll just select the folder, and yeah, once you open the folder, yeah, sorry. Yeah, once you open the folder, it will take a second to set up your environment. Yeah. Now we would even require 3 extensions, and I'll show you how to install those extensions. Live Server, Beautify, and Emmet. Emmet will be means automatically installed on your VS Code, I assume. So we'll just install Live Server and Beautify for now. So again, go to that navbar section, and here you can find extensions. Just click on it, and first we need to install Live Server. So just type Live Server. Yeah, just click on it and install it. I've already installed it. You just need to install it, and the extension will be enabled globally, right? Similarly, as we did for live, as we installed Live Server, we also need Beautify. You can just go ahead and install this Beautify. Okay. Once you've installed both of these extensions, again go back to the Explorer section, and over here you can see a small icon where when you hover on it, it will show you new file. Just click on it and just write the name of the file that we are going to create first. So first we'll be creating the HTML file. So let's just type index.html. Yeah. So as you can see, we have created our HTML file over here. Now, before we start learning about HTML and CSS, I want you guys to understand what these 3 languages are. So now that we have a substance of what we can accomplish with web development, let's talk about the foremost languages you must have a grip on to found the foundation of web development. Now, those 3 languages are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They are the backbone of any website or any web development project. So HTML is an acronym for Hypertext Markup Language. which is often misunderstood or misinterpreted as a programming language, but actually it isn't. It's just a markup language, which means it is written using certain syntax to display text and content in browsers. Now, if you were to speak metaphorically, it's just like the human body. Like, you can just go ahead and look at this. Just imagine a human body, and HTML is like the skeleton of the website. Okay, it's the backbone or the skeleton of the entire website. Now, CSS assists us to make modification in the appearance of a website. Just like us, we wear clothes to look elegant. CSS makes our website look aesthetic and user friendly. We humans also perform various day-to-day activities like you're moving your hands, walking, clapping your hands. Now, similar to these dynamic functionalities that we do, we can add such dynamic functionalities to our websites using JavaScript. Okay. So if we get a good grasp on the basics of these three languages, we can create impressive websites. Okay. So let's go ahead and I'll just teach you how to create a boilerplate code for HTML. So I'll just take a look at what I'm doing and code along with me, guys. Okay. So just press means just create an exclamation mark over here. Write an exclamation mark and press tab or enter. Okay. Just press tab or enter, and you'll get an automatic code will be generated on your screen. Now this is called as the boilerplate code. Boilerplate code is just like a template or a snippet of code that is required before you start any web development project. So this is the basic tags that you require when you start a web dev project. So HTML tag basically tells you where the file starts and ends. Head tag is basically a container for your title tags, your link tags, and your meta tags. Your title tag is very important. I'll just show you where the title tag is. So as you can see, here you can see download Visual Studio Code hyphen Mac comma Linux comma window. Now this is the title tag. So whatever you write between the title tag, it's going to be displayed over here on the browser. So just imagine if you are a user and if you have multiple tabs open, so you should have a crisp and a very appropriate name for your title so that the user can quickly switch between tabs. Okay, that's your title tag, and make sure it's always between the head tag. Head is basically a container for all your meta and title tags. Now body tag. Now whatever I write inside the body tag, it's going to be rendered on your web page. So I want you guys to just right click on your environment and just click on open with live server. Okay. Now once you click on open with live server, you can see I'll just change the title over here. Let's go. Yeah, and you can see that my title has appeared over here. Now I'm not going to use I'm not going to use the live server right now because I have to keep switching between tabs. But I want you guys to use live server because during our portfolio website, when we make a portfolio website, we'll be using live server. So now I'll be using live server preview. No need to worry about it. It's just for you guys. Just a second. Yeah. So now whatever I write between my body tag, let's say I create a h1 tag, which is a heading tag, and I write something like heading 1, is going to be displayed on your screen. It's going to be rendered on the web page. So whatever is encapsulated in your body tag, it's going to be rendered on your web page. Now, we learn the different types of HTML tags. It's just when we learn about CSS. Okay. So CSS, as you know, helps us create beautiful website. It changes the appearance of the website. Okay. So CSS basically has 3 segments. As you can see, selector, property, and value. Now selector can be tag names, class names, or ID names. Don't worry about classes and IDs. We'll be covering that in a short time. Now property dictates which aspect of the selector will be changed visually. So you can add as many properties as you wish, and you can even change the default properties by overriding the values. Like if we suppose I've taken an example over here, let's say selector is h1, and the property that we want to change is color, and we're adding a value to it. Now value is basically uh, what CSS chosen, the CSS property that we have chosen, it will be changed to. Okay, so if I choose the property color and if I add the value pink, then all the h1 tags in my HTML file will have the color pink. Okay, so I hope you understood this basic rule or the basic structure that CSS has. Now you might be thinking, how do I add the CSS to my HTML files? So we have, so we have, just a second. So yeah, we have three techniques, or we have three ways in which we can add CSS to our HTML files. The first one is inline CSS. Now in inline CSS, we add a style attribute. As you can see over here, there's a style attribute that we have added to our particular HTML tag, and we can add the property and the value in it. No need of selector over here. We just need the property and the value. Okay, this is called as the inline CSS. Now in internal CSS, we create a style tag in our head container. As I showed you, this was our head container. In that, we create a style tag, and in that style tag, we use the selector property value structure. And the most important and the most common way to insert CSS is by linking the CSS file to the HTML file, and it helps to maintain code in a cleaner and a better way. So that will be tackled using external CSS. Now, inline and internal CSS aren't good practices when the project or the code base is very huge. You can use them for testing out some properties or trying out some stuff, but it is preferred that we use external CSS. Now let's go back to our VS Code and try these three out. So now here we have created an h1 tag. Let's try inline CSS first. For inline CSS, we first create a style attribute. We first add a style attribute to our desired HTML tag. Now let's say I want to change the color property to, let's say, red. As you can see, the heading had the default color of black, had a default color black. It has now changed to red. Similarly, you can add more more properties over here. So let's say I even want to change the font size. Excuse me. Let's say the font size to, let's say, 20 pixels, and you can see it has decreased. Let's say 50 pixels. It has increased. So you can add as many properties and values you want for that particular element. This is how we add inline CSS to our HTML files. Now let's create another element over here. Let's create an ordered list. As you know, ordered list, the basic tag name for ordered list is OL, and in that ordered list we'll have items. We'll have list items. So for the list item has a tag name li. Let's create an li over here. Let's say AI SMS. Let's create another list item. Let's say VIP. Let's create another list item. Let's say COEP. Yeah, that's good. Now, as you can see, in that ordered list, I added three list items, and as the name suggests, it's ordered. That's why we have these numbering over here, 1, 2, and 3. If I change this to unordered list, basically to UL, the entire thing will be in bullet points by default. Okay, so let's go back to our head container and tackle internal CSS. Now, how did we do that? We go to our head container, then we create a style tag, and inside that style tag, we use the selector property value, that structure. So now I want to change the color of the unordered list to, let's say, blue, or to, let's say, green. So what I should do, first I should write the name of the tag, which is the selector, which is UL. Then I want to change the color, let's say color property, to, let's say, blue. No, green would look better. Yeah, green. So as you can see, and let's even change the background color. Let's change the background color to, let's say, black. Yep. And see, as you can see, I've added internal CSS in our HTML file. How did we do that? Basically a style tag. Inside that, again, my selector over here was the unordered list UL tag, and inside that, my property and my values. Okay, this was internal CSS, and this was inline CSS. Okay, now let's go ahead and tackle external CSS. How should we do that? Go back to your Explorer section on the left hand side, and just create another file. Just click on new file and just name it styles.css. As you can see, it's .css. The extension of the name of the file is .css, and just enter. Okay, you can name anything, you can name it anything you want. And now let's just go ahead and create another element over here. Let's say I create a button tag, and let's say uh, online classes are boring. Okay, so as you can see, this is how a default button would look like on your web page, or default HTML button would look like. Now I want, I'll go back to my styles.css. Now we are studying here external CSS, right? So I'll just put the selector property as button, because I want all the buttons to have, let's say, a color of, let's say, blue, and the font, let's say the font weight, which is, let's say, let it be bold. And I'll even change the, let's say, I'll even add a border to it, let's say 2 pixels solid, and let's say red, so that you can look at it. Okay, it won't be that good looking, but I hope you can take a look at it. But as you can see, nothing has changed in my HTML file or on my web page. Now why is that? Because styles.css is a different file. Now we need to link our CSS file to our HTML file. Now how do we do that? Just go back to your head container, and you can just create a link tag, which is a self-closing tag. Now what self-closing tag means, just take a look at it. Body tag has a closing tag, means you have to explicitly close it with the name of the tag preceded with a /. Similarly for h1 tag, ul tag, button tag, all these tags needs to be closed explicitly. But as you can see, link tag is a self-closing tag. Okay, we'll even learn about image tag and input tags, which are also self-closing tags. So basically we created a link tag over here, and the relation is style sheet. Style sheet means our CSS, which is cascading style sheets. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Now href is basically, where is it located in your working directory? Where is it located? So I'll just give you guys a quick a tip. Whenever you're working on a project, and if you want to find all the folders and files in your working directory, just type period or a full stop along with a /, and it will list out all the files and folders in your working directory. So I want to link this HTML file with my CSS file. Yeah, now take a look at it. Yeah, now as the CSS and HTML file are linked, the text, I had changed the color to blue, the font weight to bold, and the border that I had given to the button has been applied. The CSS has been applied. Okay, now I have a small, you must be thinking, like, what if I add internal, inline, and external CSS to the same HTML element with the same property in each type, but different values? Let me take an example and let me explain what I'm exactly trying to say. Okay, so as you can see, we have a UL over here. We'll add this entire style. I'll just close this. Yeah, this entire inline CSS to my UL. Just code along with me, guys, because it's important that you code, so that when we start building a portfolio website, it'll be much easier for you guys. And okay, so we have inline CSS for a UL tag. We have internal CSS for a UL tag. I'll just remove the background color. We'll just take a look at only one CSS property. Let's say color. So in inline CSS, let's just add inline in external CSS as well. So I'll just type UL over here, and I'll just remove all this. Just, yeah, we'll make it as simple as possible. So in inline CSS, the color should be red. In internal CSS, the color should be green, and in external CSS, the color should be blue, right? Now it is applied to the same HTML element, which is the UL tag. Now, what do you think? Which styles will it render on the screen? So, is it going to be the inline CSS, internal CSS, or the external CSS? Let's take a look at it. Now, as you can see, the UL has the color red. So here we come across a special case, or we've come across a precedence rule that inline CSS is greater than internal CSS, which in turn is greater than external CSS. So you guys can go ahead and just try out some combinations. Like you can keep internal and inline CSS, you can keep internal and external CSS, and when you try those out, try those combinations out, you'll understand that the precedence rule is inline greater than internal greater than external CSS. Okay, good going, guys. Now as you observe, we've come across a small problem over here. Now what if let's just remove all our external CSS and our inline CSS. Yep. What if I want let's just copy paste this 5 times. 4 times is enough. Okay, and I just change heading 2, heading 3, heading 4. Now as you can see, I have 4 H1 tags with different text inside it. And if I want you guys to think about this, if I want to change the color of 2 H1 tags to blue and 2 H1 tags to red, with the current knowledge of CSS and external CSS, I don't think we can do this, right? Of course, we can add inline CSS to all of them, but it will be tedious and the code must be refactored and should be small, right? So it won't look good. And we are when I'm telling when I'm from now on whenever I'm telling about CSS, it's about we are going to use external CSS, not inline and internal, because it's not a good practice, right? So with the current knowledge of CSS, I don't think we can tackle this problem. So therefore, we learn something called as IDs and classes. Now, IDs are a much more specific way to target your specific element. Now, how do we add an ID? We basically, as we added the style attribute in inline CSS, similarly, you can add an ID attribute for your desired HTML element, and you can give a name to it, a specific appropriate name for it. Okay, and then go back to your styles.css, and if you want to select this HTML element in your styles.css, what you need to do is the name of the ID preceded with a hash symbol. Okay, the name of the ID preceded with a hash symbol, and then you just give the property and the value to it. Okay, good. And similarly for class, you need to go to your desired HTML element. You need to add an attribute class. You need to give it a specific name. Let's say I've given it a para1 name. And again, if you want to target this element and you want to change some CSS or add some CSS to it, then you go back to your styles.css, your external CSS, and the name of the class preceded with a full stop or a period. Okay, and then your property and your value. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this out with some examples. So let's say in my UL, I create an ID. Let's say list. Okay, and here I'll create a class. Let's say head. Okay, now I want to change the color of this UL to, let's say, orange. Let's say orange. So I'll go back to my styles.css. Just a minute. I'll go back to my styles.css, and as it's because it's an ID, what we need to do is the name of the list. I'll just copy it so that to avoid any typos, preceded with a hash symbol. Okay, and then I just use the same similar structure of the as we learned. So color should be, let's say, orange. Perfect, and you have this orange color over here. Now, similarly for class, if I want to add CSS to this h1 tag using the class, I'll just copy the name of the class, go back to my styles.css, my external file, and now it's this class, right? So the name of the class should be preceded with a full stop or a period. And then let's say I just want to change the color to red. As you can see, we have the color red over here. Now if I want, I can reuse the class over here. I can just copy paste this class, and if I want heading 3 also to have red color, so I can put heading 3. I just add the class and automatically the CSS is applied to it. Now, remember to have very appropriate and meaningful names for your IDs and your classes, especially when the code base is enormous, which will ultimately help you to debug your code easily and get the desired results. Now, you might be thinking, what if I add an ID, okay, and a class to a similar HTML tag, okay? As you can see, it is accepting the values, or it is using the CSS from the ID that we are defined, the color orange, and not the class. So again, you can go ahead and try out some combinations, like you can put multiple classes or multiple IDs, ID class, 2 IDs, or only 1 class, and you'll come across another precedence rule over here, is that IDs are greater than classes. Whatever is written in your IDs is going to be first applied to your HTML tag and then your classes, okay? And you can even add, let's say I create another class over here, let's say list, let's say font. Now you can add multiple classes like this. Just put a space between the name of the classes and name of the ID classes. You can do it for both. Go back to your styles.css. Now it's an ID, so let's just change the color. No, let's just change the font size to, let's say, 45 pixels. I'll just use this for my class over here. Yeah. As you can see, I've added 2 classes over here. One is the head class and one is the font class. Okay. And it is applying all the properties from the classes that I had defined in the external CSS. Now, you might be thinking, what is the difference? What is the difference between classes and IDs? Now, IDs are supposed to be very unique, whereas classes aren't. Thus, reusable code or code that is being repetitive should be kept in a class. That all the CSS properties that are being required repetitively should be kept in a class. And the code which is unique and specific should be kept in an ID. Now, each element can have only one ID, but on the other hand, you can have multiple classes for the same element. As we saw over here, we had multiple classes over here, head and font. Now, finally, each page should have only one element with that specific ID, whereas you can have the same class on multiple elements. For instance, as you can see, I have the same class over here on multiple elements, but still it won't throw a problem. Now, CSS won't care if you if you don't follow the last rule. CSS won't care. But when you are working with JavaScript, it's a very particular language, and it would care about the last rule very much. So now that we have acquired the rudimentary knowledge of HTML and CSS, I have a small challenge for you guys. So just remove everything from your styles.css, okay? And just remove everything from your body as well. And now what I want you all to do is, I just want you guys to create a h1 tag. I want you guys to write your name over here. Okay. I want you guys to create a button over here, and you just write connect. Okay, that's all. So just create these 2 elements, and now I want you guys to add an ID to your h1 tag and a class to your button tag. And then you can add any properties you want. You can add color property, font size properties, but using an ID and a class. So you have to use styles.css over here, your external file. Okay, I'll give you guys 2 or 3 minutes to try this challenge out. And if you have completed the challenge, just put a thumbs up in the live chat. Yeah. And if you have any doubts, guys, just let us know. If you think that I'm going very fast or very slow, just let me know. Okay. And just a quick suggestion: if you're having any problems, if you have only one device, you can just split the screen like this. Okay. And then you can have YouTube on one side and VScode on the other. But I'll prefer that if you have two devices like your phone and your laptop. So on your phone you can view the live stream, and on the laptop you can just code along with us. Okay. So I'll just give you the solution to this challenge. Let's just create an ID over here. Let's say I name it name, and let's create a class over here. Let's say name. Oh, sorry, not name. Let's say button btn. And now again the same similar thing. Go back to your style.css. It's an ID, so it should precede the name should precede with a hash symbol. So hash the name, and again just put let's say actually I want to change the color. Let's say to let's say blue. Just want to change the font size again to let's say bold, and I've added css to our h1 tag using the id name, and similarly I use the class name. Go back to my style.css. Now it's a class, so it should proceed with the so the name of the class should proceed with a full stop or a period. And then I'll just change the border radius, let's say 10 pixels, and I'll change the color, let's say red. Yeah, that's enough. You can add any property you want. No need to no need to worry about that. And just show a preview of it, how it will look. Okay, as you can see, you have a H1 tag over here and a button over here. I hope you guys could complete this challenge. It was very easy. If not, I hope you once I've given the solution, you can try that out. Okay. Now, guys, do you have any questions? I'll just stop sharing my screen now.
We'll wait for a few seconds because there tends to be a lag with YouTube just to see if there are any questions. So if you have any, feel free to put them in the chat box right now.
Sure, sure.
I'm just going to repeat myself here again here. So, in case you find this like too fast or too slow, let us know. And in case you need to adjust the playback speed, you can do that as well. And make sure you use
Yeah.
a split screen.
Yep. Cool. I guess we can go ahead with the next section. Good
Yeah,
enough.
fair enough.
Yeah.
So the next section is I'm just going to start sharing my screen in a second. Yep. So I hope you can see my slides at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So the next section is going to be very interesting. We'll actually start building the website. So let's quickly look at the design once. So firstly, we're going to build this landing page, which includes an image. It's going to be an image of you or your name, of like a short description about yourself, your social media icons, and a button. This is the button that's going to take you to your form. Now, let's hop on to our VS Code. So I hope everybody at this point in time has made a folder. So make sure, in case you haven't, do it right now. Make a folder and make an index.html file inside it and a CSS file, and then link the CSS file with the HTML file. Also, make sure you add a picture of yourself. In case you don't have one, you can skip this part for now, but it would be good if you could add a picture of yourself to this folder. In VS Code, you can simply drag and drop a picture of yourself as well. So I'm going to start here with the basic boilerplate, and I will link my CSS right now. So I'm just going to add an exclamation mark, press enter, and that's going to give me my boilerplate. Firstly, I'll change the title to my name because it's going to be my portfolio website. And secondly, I'm going to link my CSS. So if you just type a link, you'll often notice that if you type any tag names, VS Code just predicts the tag for you, and then you can just press enter, and it'll give you, the basic boilerplate of the tag. So here it's given me, a style sheet link with an href. So an href is going to be the path basically. I'll just type in dot followed by slash, which basically represents the base directory, and styles.css. So at this point in time, I've linked my CSS file. You can also test out if the link is actually working or not by adding a tag and then applying some CSS on it. So we'll do that in a short bit. We can actually go ahead and start building our website now. So the first thing we want to add is an image. So I have an image of myself over here, add one as well. And you add an image by an img tag in HTML. And it has these two attributes over here. The first one is src, which stands for source. And the second one is alt, which stands for alternative or alternate text. SRC source is going to be the path of the image that you're going to use, and alternative is going to be any text that gets displayed in case your image is not getting rendered on the website for some reason. So ALT is very useful in terms of also making the website very accessible. So if anybody is using a voice reader to go through a website, then it will read the alternative text. So let's just add our source over here. I haven't added any folder, so I can simply type in the path, which is ./pic.jpeg, and then I'll add some alternative text. I'm just going to add my name here because it's a picture of me. Secondly, I'm going to add a heading. So I'll go with an H1 and type in your name here. And after this, I'm just going to add a paragraph. So since I don't have a description ready, and in case you do, you can add a description. But if you do not, we will add some dummy text or some lorem ipsum text. To add lorem ipsum text in HTML, you just type in lorem, LOREM, and then the number of words that you want. I will type 60 and then press enter, and it will give you 60 random gibberish words that don't mean anything. And that's all I need for now. I'm going to skip my social media icons for now. Anshul will be taking that for you. I'm just simply going to make a button. So type in button, press enter, and I'll give this button a class as well called BTN. So now let's quickly, initiate our live server. So you should be able to see a go live button over here. In case you can't, in Windows, there is a shortcut which is Windows Shift P. I hope I'm using the right shortcut. Okay, so it's Control Shift P. Just press Control Shift P, and then you can type in live server over here, and then click on Open with live server, and select the folder that you want. Now this is going to quickly open a live server over here. So you can see that it's added a picture of me here, but the picture is, it, since I did not give it a height or a width, it's in its complete dimensions. Then there is a simple, very basic HTML heading over here and each one followed by a paragraph and a button. You can't even see the button because I haven't added any text in between. Let me just quickly do that so you can see it. Add it between the opening and the closing tag. And now let's go back and see what it looks like. So yeah, this looks like it's straight out of the 90s or something because there is no styling and it looks very hideous. So now we'll quickly style it. But before that, we'll just do a couple more things. So we're going to take all of these elements and wrap them in a container. To create containers, we usually use something called the div element or division element, which creates blocks that always show up in a separate line. So I'll create a div and I'll give it a class of container. And if I wrap all my elements inside this, it'll help me style everything like collectively and give some margin and padding. So it's very useful in that case. Now I have my container ready. I'll jump onto my styles.css, which is the most interesting part. So before we style individual elements, we're going to style the body. As you noticed before, HTML by default has some styles for H1 paragraph. It has given, for example, Times New Roman font or a certain font size. Then it also has a little bit of margin and padding on the body. But to be able to start from a clean slate without any predefined properties on the body, we're going to remove the margin and the padding. So let's just set the margin to 0 and the padding to 0. Another thing I want to do is give it a dark theme. So for that, I have this background color that I want you to add. For background color, the property is pretty self-explanatory. It's just background hyphen color. And I'll add a hex code over here. So hex codes are 6-digit numbers used to represent colors. The first 2 digits represent the value of red, followed by the next two green and the next two blue. So you can also add, predefined colors, but this is a very specific color which isn't predefined in HTML that we want you to add. So we've added this background color over here. Let's look at what our website looks like now. So it has this background color and we've removed any margin and padding from the body. You can see that, it's completely stuck to the sides, but this text is barely visible. So let's change the color of all text to white. To change text color, you use the color property, set it to white. And now let's go back and see what it looks like. Yep, that's pretty neat. The next thing I'm going to do is change the fonts. So the fonts that I've selected for this portfolio website are actually not present by default in HTML. And what I mean by default is that if you type in font family value over here, there are a lot of predictive values that it's showing you here. So these are the predefined fonts. But since the one I want is not predefined, I will show you a very cool resource that you can use, which is Google Fonts. So go to your browser and type in fonts.google.com. It's going to take you to Google Fonts. This is a really cool resource. It allows you to download a lot of different fonts. It also allows you to embed links to fonts, which means that you're basically just embedding a link that fetches the font online off the web. So you don't have to locally download it and fetch it. I'll show you what I mean in a quick second. So I want you to type in SEN in the search bar, and you will find this uh, font over here. And we're just going to select one of these styles. You can see that there is a button over here that says select this style. Now you're probably wondering what is regular 400, 700, and 800. So these numbers basically suggest the font weight of the font. The font weight is how bold a font is. So in CSS also, when you're defining the font weight of a specific element, you have values like 100, 200, which go on till 900. And or alternatively, you can also just state font weight bold, bolder, or other values like that. So 400 is regular. We'll just go ahead and select regular 400. Now there is another font that we want. So we're going to select both of them and then we are going to, look at this selected family tab. So just click on the Google Fonts logo over here and head back to the main page. I will choose Roboto Mono over here. Just type in mono and you'll get that. And let's just select the regular 400 here as well. Now that I've selected both the styles, you can look at the right and there's going to be a tab over here that talks about selected families. I noticed that there are two, embedded codes over here. So it's telling me that if I want to embed this font, I have to copy this code into the HTML, into the head of the HTML. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Take the link tag, copy it, head back to your HTML file and paste it in the head. I'll also show you a quick tip that you can use to make your code better. So you might have heard about comments in code, which are basically which is basically code that doesn't get counted or executed. It's just for reading purposes. So to add any comments in HTML, you type in the smaller than sign followed by an exclamation mark and two hyphens. And then you close it with two hyphens and a greater than sign. And between that, you can type a comment. So if I want to mention that embedded fonts over here. This is just to make my code a little more readable. So you can use this as well if you want to. Now let's go back to our fonts.google.com. So here it's given the CSS rules to specify family. So right now I've just imported the fonts off the web, but I am not applying the fonts onto anything. So to apply the fonts, I need to type in these font families. So I'm just going to take this Sen font. So copy that and go back to my VS Code, head to styles.css and let me just apply this font to the entire body and see what it looks like. So that looks pretty cool. You can notice that, it's a lot better than the Times New Roman, but also I want a different font for the padding. So let me go and give the padding a different font. Firstly, I'll go back to my Google Fonts and copy this font family for the Roboto font. And now I will head to VS Code, styles.css, and I will select paragraph. I will directly use a grouping selector, which means that all of the paragraph elements in this HTML file will now have these specific properties. So I will paste this font family here. Now let me go back and see what it looks like. So that looks pretty cool. Now you might be wondering why, it's not giving the send property to the paragraph tag, even though I've given the send property to the entire body. What I'm basically doing over here is overriding previously defined CSS. So because this paragraph tag has specifically been given, CSS properties, and that too after I have defined the body properties, it's going to consider this property and not this property. So I hope that makes sense. Now let's do a couple more things. So let's select this H1 tag and increase the font size. We'll go with a font size of about 4 rem. You guys can also experiment with these values as you go along. Like there is no hard and fast rule as to what value you have to use, but these are just values that we thought would, fit best. So that's pretty neat. Let's style the button now. Back to your styles.css and select the class btn. To select a class, in case you do not remember, you have to type in a period followed by the class name. That's my selector. Now I'll add the properties. So the button, if you can notice, has not taken up the font family of the body. It has its own font family. So for buttons, you have to specifically define the font family again. So I'm just going to take this font family from here. Let's take monospace and paste that in here. Now let's go back and see what it looks like. So that's pretty neat. And I'm going to change the background color to the button now. I wanted to have this really cool green accent color that we had defined in the rest of our design. Let me just get you the hex code for that. It is 80FFBB. And I'll also increase the font size to about 1.1 REM. So in case you're wondering what REM is, you might have heard of these definitive measures of values like units, like pixels and points that we use in HTML. Now, REM is not an absolute unit, it's a relative unit. So, REM depends on the default font size of the device you're using. So, one REM is 1 unit of font size being used in your the device that we're using. Usually, if you're using a desktop, it will be 16 pixels. So most of the basic paragraph text that you'll see at any point in time is going to be 16 pixels. One REM is 16 pixels, so 4 REM is going to be 16 into 4, 64 pixels, and it is relative, so it depends on the device you're using as well, which is why we'll go with this. So in case somebody has increased font size on their phone, for example, to a lot more because they have eyesight issues, then it'll relatively increase the font size. So that looks pretty neat. I'm also going to make this font a little bold, and then I'm going to do something with the border over here. So I want to make the border of this button a little curved on the sides. Give it a font weight of 700, and now let's give it a curved border. To give any element in HTML a curved border, you have to give it a border radius, which is the radius by which the border will be curved. So if I give it, let's say, 10 pixels, and then I try to go and see what it looks like, you can notice that it has now curved it with a radius of 10 pixels. So that's exactly what I was looking for. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm just going to remove this awkward black border that you can see over here. Now, there are a lot of border properties in CSS like bottom, top, color, left, width, right, style. But I don't want to specify each and every border property like individually. How much border do I want at the top? How much do I want at the left? What do I want the width to be? What do I want the style to be? It's too tiresome for me, and I'm too lazy, quite frankly. So for that, there is a solution. You can use shorthand properties where you basically just use the property border followed by a colon, and then you add the properties that you want separated by spaces in a specific order. I'll show you an example. So if I type in 5 pixels solid and a hex code over here, it will take 5 pixel as the width, solid to be the style, and the hex code to be the color of the border. Now let's go and see what it looks like. You can notice that the black border is gone and now it has a green border. So that's pretty neat. And now let's style this huge image over here, which is looking pretty hideous. Let's make it circular, which means we are going to have to curve the edges, but in a very specific way to make it a complete circle. And we're also going to give it a border. To make any element a complete circle, you have to give it a border radius of 50%. So let's select this image over here. Since we only have one image in the entire website, we can directly use the img tag instead of using, classes or IDs, which is also something you can alternatively do. Uh, let's just give it a border radius of 50%. And let's also give it a height and a width. So I'm going to give it a height of 15 REM and a width of 15 REM, which means it's going to be a lot smaller than it was right now. Let's go and see what it looks like. So it's a complete circle and it's definitely has like an equal height and a width, but you'll notice that it has literally squished my face or stretched it out, if you will. To fix that and to retain the original ratio of the image, there is a very cool property that you can use, and it's very important. So make sure you note it down or like fit it into your head if you have to. It's the property object fit set to cover. Now let's go back and see. So yeah, that's retained the original ratio of the image, and it looks pretty cool. Let's add a border to our image now. Let's just copy the same border properties we used earlier. Let me know if I'm going too fast, like I can slow down for you. Border, and I'll set it to 8 pixels instead of 5 this time. And I'm pretty happy with that. Now there are a lot of, now try to look at not the elements individually, but like as a whole. So you'll notice that there's too much space between this image and the heading, and the heading and the description, and not enough between the button. And then there is no padding on the sides. So let's work on that now. Let's work on our margins and our paddings. Firstly, let's head back to our HTML and analyze our code once more. We had wrapped all of these elements in a container. So now let's give this container a padding. I'll select the container and give it a padding. So for padding, similar to border, you have a lot of different, you have padding left, top, bottom, and right on the four sides. But you can also simply use the padding select padding property and give it one value, which will be used for all four sides. Now there are also shortcut values that you use. So if you want to give different values for the four sides or two sides or something like that, there are shortcut values. I'm going to teach you one shortcut value, which is if I give two values for padding, which is let's say 2 rem and 5 rem. It's going to take the first value for the top and the bottom, and the second value for the left and the right. Let's go and check that out. So now you can notice the difference. It is 5 rem on the side and 2 rem on the top, and it looks pretty cool. Now I'm going to do one thing, that this heading has a lot of margin because it's an H1 and we've increased the font size. So it has a lot of margin over here. Let's remove the margin of this heading and then give it some padding to, based on whatever our preference is. So let's set the margin to 0 and let's see what it looks like. So now it's, we've removed all the margins, so there is not a lot of space. Now I'm just going to add some padding, and I'm not going to add any padding here. I'm going to add some between the image and the text, which is going to be padding top. Let me give it 1 rem and see what it looks like. So yep, that's increased a little bit, and I'm pretty happy with that. What I'm going to do now is give some space between this button and this paragraph. So there are two ways I can go about this. I can actually either give this paragraph a bottom or a bottom padding or a margin, or I can give this button a top padding or a margin. I'm just going to go with the button over here because I want to use paragraphs in a lot of places. So let me just select the specific button which has a class and give it a margin top of 1 rem and see what it looks like. And I'm pretty happy with that. So that's your first section almost complete. I do want to show you a really cool thing that you can do over here. I want to make this button, a little more interactive. So you might have noticed in some places, if you, hover over a button, it changes color. So there is, a way you can do that in CSS. CSS allows you to give specific properties for specific states of elements. So I'm really sorry if there is some sort of background noise. Um, let's just select the specific state of this button. And how do you do that? You type in the selector that you want for the element, followed by a colon, and then the state you want. So the state I want is hover. And now I can give a hover state specific properties. These properties will override the normal properties when I hover, and they will not show up when I am not hovering over the button. So for example, I set the background color to this dark theme, and then I head back. Let's see what it looks like. So now I'm just going to hover over this button. Notice closely. Now it has a black background. When I'm not hovering over it, it has the green background that I gave it earlier. Let's also give it a white color for when I'm hovering over it. So that looks pretty neat. I do want to give it some padding because I want this text to, have some padding on the top and the bottom. So let me just do that. For this as well, I'm going to use some shorthand properties. So this is going to be in the button selector as well, because I want this to remain always. I'll give 0.5 rem for top and bottom and 1 rem for both the sides. And that's pretty neat. I'm very happy with that. And that's about it for the first section. Anshul will be taking the icons. And I'm quickly going to teach you how to make the columns for your work experience and your education experience. But before that, I'm going to be taking any questions. So if you have any questions, just put them in the comment section below.
Guys, if you have any questions, don't feel shy. Just put down your questions and we answer those questions. And just in case if you're lagging or if you've joined now and if you want, the code for the session that we've covered so far, you can go in the you can just go in the description and you'll find a GitHub repo link where you'll find the entire code base. Yeah. I hope everyone is enjoying. If you have any feedback, like some suggestion, like go slow or just increase the font size, anything, just let us know. We are also students, so yeah. Okay, I don't think anyone has any questions right now.
Okay, so now I'll move on to the next part. I think I can go ahead with that now. So this is the most exciting part because when you write CSS and when you make more complex websites, you're going to need to use a layout model because you will have a lot of different elements on screen at a point in time, and you will want to arrange them maybe in one direction or in multiple directions. So to do that, CSS gives you a lot of layout models like position, display, flex, grid, but we're going to take my favorite one, which is flex. So Flex, or the CSS Flex box model, allows you to space, stack, and align elements in a lot of different directions. So let's see how you can actually do that. You don't need to code along with this part. You can just watch, and then we'll quickly get back to coding the next section. So over here, I have already defined some HTML and some CSS for you. I have a div over here with the class max. Now, this div is actually wrapping four more divisions. Let's look at the CSS. So in the CSS, you'll notice something new over here. So I have dot max followed by a greater than sign and then div. What this basically means is it's reflecting a hierarchy. So it's selecting all the divs inside the dot max class. I hope that makes sense. It's dot max greater than div. So it's like dot max is the bigger container or the parent, and div is the child. And what I've done over here is that I've given this div a width, a height, a background color, and a border. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm not going to show you the live, use the live server here. I'll actually just quickly jump to this folder and open this index.html file over here. And I hope you can see it on my screen now. You'll notice that I have width of 400, height of 200, background color of pink, and a border black. And you can see all of that over here. And so what is a flex? A flex is basically a model that allows you to align items in a single direction. So either in a row form, which is horizontally, or a vertical form, uh, which is also known as column. So this is how you initiate a flex. So to create a flex box with different items inside it, the max is the flex that I'm actually going to create. And to initiate it as a flex, I need to give it a property of display flex. Now let's see what has happened over here. Now all of these four items are suddenly showing up in one line and they are being squished together. That is because a flex always has a flex direction of row by default. But if which is all the elements that I now put inside max are going to show up in a single line, and regardless of what their size is, it's just going to squish them together and force them to be in a single line. What if I want every single element to show up in a different line? Then I can use flex direction column, and that's how that's going to show. But over here, I'm just going to show you another small property, but I only want flex direction row. So I will remove this. Now you might be wondering, that what if I had text inside this? Then it's just going to overlap all of the text because it has not retained the 400 pixel width over here. It's just squished it together. So to be able to actually wrap elements or to send an element to a next line when it doesn't fit, I'm going to use some wrapping properties, which is flex wrap. Now I'll just show you what wrap does. So now that I've added a flex wrap property, what it has done here is that it has retained the original width of each item. Because my screen is a little less than a little more than 1200 pixels, it has added three 400 pixel boxes over here. And because it did not have enough space for the fourth one, it just sent it to the next line. So it has wrapped it to the next line. So this is, one property of flex that is very useful in terms of, making your website responsive as well, which basically means that if I'm using a website on different devices, the screen size may differ, and then it has to wrap elements based on the screen size. So this is pretty cool. Now Flex has a lot more properties, like a sea of properties that you can use, which are very cool, and some of them are going to allow you to space elements in different ways and do a lot of cool things. You can go and check that out, but for now we're only going to take this much information and use that. So let's just quickly head back to our portfolio website, and I'm going to use a tag over here called the section tag. Now, I've added this before my div itself. This section tag is basically just for semantic, or like semantic sense, or to make my code more meaningful. I'm going to create different sections, for understanding. So I will take this entire container and put it inside this section. And after this, for my next se- uh, you know segment, I'm going to create another section. Let's go back to the PPT ones and look at the design. So this is what we want to make. And I wanted to try and visualize this in the form of a flex. What's basically happening over here is that we have two columns, and we're keeping those columns in the same line. But also, in case those columns don't fit, we want it to be wrapped to the next line. So that is where we're going to use flex wrap. And the container that's going to contain these two columns is going to be a flex. Let's go back, and now let's start writing the HTML for the same. I'm going to create a div container like I did last time, and I have my div with the class container over here. I will add two columns inside it. So I'm going to give these two columns classes based on what they contain. So one is for education, one is for experience. I'll create one div with the class edu, and one div with the class exp. And then inside these, I'm going to add some headings, paragraphs, stuff like that. I'm firstly going to add a heading 2 because I already used heading 1, and this is going to be, like a subheading. You can also use another heading, it doesn't matter, because eventually we're going to end up changing the CSS. But I'll just go with H2, and I'll type in education over here. I'll just copy this into the second div as well, which is experience. Let's just look at the design once more. You'll notice that it's sort of iterating this specific segment over here with like this second subheading and two lines, second subheading, three lines, second subheading, three lines. So we're going to wrap this bit into another div and then just copy it again, and just keep using it again and again. Well, let me show you how that actually works. I'll create a div with the class details, and inside that I'm going to create a heading 3. Let me just make it high school graduation, and I'll add a paragraph and another paragraph. But to this paragraph, I can also give it a class, or alternatively, if I want to refer to specific paragraph, I can refer to it as a parent element of the details class. But let me just give it a class of its own. Um, I'm just going to give it a class date. So ideally, you want to have meaningful classes, but I'm just going to use dates over here, and we're going to type in some dates inside this. Let's just go with 2017 to 2019, XYZ high school. And now this details division is what we're going to use, multiple times. I'm just going to take that and copy that twice again. And then I'm going to copy it 3 more times in the experience box as well after the heading. Now let's go back to our website and see what it looks like. You'll notice that the education and the experience divs both are showing one after the other. That's because divs are block elements. Block elements are elements that are going to show up in the next line always as a separate block. But we don't want that. We want experience and education to show side by side. So for that, we're going to use a flex. Now let's head back to our CSS. Now for CSS as well, you can, add some comments here if you want to, but let's just quickly skip that bit and select this container. But I don't want to, target a container class because I already have a container at the top and I don't want to initiate a flex with that and, mess with that at all. But to be able to target it now, I can use an id or I can give it another class. To give it a separate class, you can just use the same class attribute and give it another value separated by at least one space. So let me just give it a class called second, container space second, which means that now it has two classes, container as well as second. Let me select second over here and give it a property of display flex, which, as I said before, helps you initiate a flex. So we have display flex over here, and by default it's going to have a flex direction column, but I also wanted to give it a flex wrap property. Let's see what it looks like now. You notice that, one column is only taking up as much space as its contents, and that is what happens with flex. But I do not want that. I want this to have a certain minimum width as well. So at least 50% of, its container. So you can actually give minimum width in CSS. It's a property as well. So for that, I will select edu and exp, which are both the columns. And the columns, I'll give them a min width or minimum width, and set it to 50%. This will take 50% of the parent container. What is the parent? The parent is the second or the container div, which has 100% width. And that's about it. Now that's pretty close to what we want, but we're just going to work quickly on, coloring the headings and reducing the spacing and increasing it where necessary. Let's head back to our CSS and, feel free to experiment with a few of these properties as well. Let's select the H2 first and give it a color of green, font size of 3 rem. Let's select the H. One second. Yep. So we had an H3 over here, right? Let's select this H3 and give it a font size of 1.5 rem. Let's go back and see what it looks like. That's pretty close to what we want, but we're just going to remove, some margin from the H3 and the margin from the paragraphs over here as well. Let me just set margin to 0. And since I want to target specific paragraph elements which had the class dates, let me just select that and give it a margin of 0. And now it's literally squished everything together because there is no margin at all, but I do want to give it some margin. So for the headings over here, the H3s, I want to give it a little bit of a margin bottom. So I can either give it, 4 margin values, or I can also override this margin 0 and then give it a margin bottom of 1 rem. And that's pretty decent. Let's just fix the paragraph elements as well. Or alternatively, what you can do is that instead of giving a paragraph element, this last paragraph element a margin, you can select the details segment as a division itself and give it a bottom margin. So let's do that. Dot details, and I'll give it a margin bottom of 1 rem. And yep. So what it's done now is that it's given this entire details, division that I had created a bottom margin, and I'm pretty happy with that. So with that, we can actually move on to the next segment. But before that, I'm just going to quickly, show you something else as well, which is that I talked about grids as well, right? So flexes and grids are similar to some extent, but then they have this major difference, which is that grids help you, align items in two directions. So you can create something like grid network, but flexes only allow you to, align items in one direction. So now flexes and
Gurnama,
grids. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt you. There is some issue with your internet. Your voice is lagging a bit.
Okay, let me just turn off my video now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So flexes and grids are, very important for front-end development. And I wanted to go ahead and explore both of them in case you do any learning after that, because both of them are equally important and you can choose what is it that you want to go ahead with. So if you have any questions, you can let us know.
So, guys, you have any questions? We have almost completed the entire website. We just need to go and create a form and add our social media icons, which we'll be doing in the next segment. You just wait for a minute. If you have any questions, just put it in the live chat. I hope everyone is coding along. Okay, I don't think we have any questions. Okay, I'll just share my screen. Yeah, is my screen visible? Good, Naman?
Yes, it is now.
Yeah, cool. So guys, we have almost completed the entire website. We just need to add social media icons and we have to create a form. Gurnemat has taught almost everything that we need to create the form. So before we create the form, we'll even add some font awesome icons. So before I go ahead and tell you about these icons, I just want you guys, like, I'll just tell you something about these icons. So as you see many websites, you might go to GitHub or you might go to Twitter. On their official websites, people embed the social media icons of the company or the organization at the end of the website to increase their reach. As we know that we are also creating a personal brand using this portfolio website, so we can also add some social media icons. So how can we achieve the same? The boring and the tedious way is to go search for icons on Google, then go to Google Images, then with the appropriate size and style, you have to download that particular image, which will take a lot of time to search, and then you have put embed it into your project. Then you have to add some extra CSS as it's an image, then that extra CSS, and after all these things, you might achieve the task of embedding the icons. But the smart way is to use font awesome icons, which is nearly used by every front-end developer and designer. And you know why when we start using them, you'll know why it's so fruitful to use them. They can be modified very easily because there are some predefined classes attached to it, and it is effortless to implement them. So let's go ahead and try them out. So let's go to our browser. Yeah, just let's just type font awesome. Yeah, fontawesome.com or font awesome icons. Yeah, I'll just take a minute to load. Yeah. So as you can see here, we can just search the icons. They have like literally thousands of free icons that we can use with just a snippet or a line of code. You need to embed it in your HTML file. That's all we need to do. I'll just show it to you. Like, let's go ahead and search GitHub. Press enter, and you'll have all the available icons from Font Awesome for the GitHub icon. So let's just take a look at it. So yeah, I guess this will look much better on our website. So I'll just click on it. Yeah, and I'll just copy this HTML. Once you hover on it, you can just copy that HTML. But the thing is, these have some predefined classes, as you can see, class FAB, FA hyphen GitHub. Now, where is the CSS for this? Right, we don't have the CSS for this in our styles.css. So for these predefined classes, or when we are embedding these, these snippets of code, we need to add a link for the styles.css or for the CSS that they have created for the predefined classes. So how do we do that? just go to font awesome, just a second, font awesome, CDN. CDN is just basically you'll find all the links that we can embed in our head container. So the first link that comes from CDN.js, just click on it. Guys, just put this link in the comment section so that people can directly click on it and be redirected to this page. And the first thing that you see over here, you need a link tag, right? Because as we saw when we were linking our external CSS to our HTML, we are using a link tag. Similarly, here also we'll be using the link tag. So just click on copy link tag and it will be copied. And just go back to your VS Code in your index.html. Just in your head container, just copy paste that link. Now uh, this link will give will have all the CSS to the predefined classes. Okay, so let's go ahead and just before the button, we'll create another div with the name of with a class name called icons. It's not working. Just a second. Working. So we have a div with class icons, and now we are going to use those small snippets or small lines of codes at HTML in our HTML file. Yeah, perfect. Now let's take a look at it. Okay, just a minute. Just go live. Yeah. Now let's take a look. As you can see, we have a small icon over here, right? We have a small icon of GitHub over here. Similarly, you can go ahead and search for, let's say, Twitter. Want an icon of Twitter, whatever social media you are on, you can find an icon on font awesome, right? So just go ahead and just copy paste the code for the icons. Yep, Twitter. Yeah, this will look good. Again, just copy the HTML. Go back to your index.html in your division in your div tag of class icons. Just yeah, that's it. Now let's take a look at it. Just take a second to load on my. Just a second, guys. Yeah, as you can see, we have the GitHub icon and the Twitter icon right over here. So, but the thing is, when I hover on these icons, it is not redirecting me to a page, or it's not showing that small finger, or that when I click on when I hover on this icon, it's changing from the cursor to a small finger. Okay. Similarly, here also I need that same thing. So I need to wrap this in a tag. Okay, so basically here this is the GitHub icon. So here I can just put my my GitHub link. So I'll just go ahead and put my GitHub link. Similarly for Twitter, just create another a tag and put the icon inside the a tag because the icon should be clickable. And in the href, I'm not on Twitter, so I'll just put hash over here, and I'll just copy paste this again. You can add Instagram and Facebook icons as well, but just for time being, I'm showing it to you how it's done. You can add as many icons you want. Right, now let's take a look at it. Yeah, as you can see, we have 4 icons over here. They are very small, and the color is also not very, it's not going with our website design or a web design, right? So let's just go ahead, and in this class over here, we can increase the size with just with the use of predefined classes or adding a class. So we can just add this class fa2x, which will increase the size of the icon by by 2 times. It will increase the size of the icon by 2 times. Similarly, I'll add this to all the icons, fa2x, this class. Now let's take a look at those icons. Yeah, just a second. Sorry, I added this icon. Yep, that's perfect. As you can see, the icons, the size is increased by just adding a class fa2x, right? Now we need to style these icons. So let's go ahead, go back to our styles.css, and first, yep, just before button div, we'll add this. So I'll just use the icons div in which all the icons are there. We'll just add a margin top so that it's not cluttered, and we'll add a margin of 1.5 rem. Then we'll just make sure that all these icons have the display property of inline block, right? And let's take a look at it now. Yep, this looks much better. We need some padding between these icons. As you can see, they're squished into each other, right? And we need to change the color as well. So I'll just use the predefined class over here, which was FAB. I'll just copy. It's a class for a period with the name of the class, and I just want to change the color of those icons. Let's say white, and I even want to add some padding at the right. Let's say 55 pixels. That might be right. And I even changed the opacity. So I'll show you why I'm changing the opacity, because I'm going to add a cool feature to our icons. And now let's take a look at it. Yeah, till then, I'm having some internet issues, that's why. Just a second. Yeah, till then. So basically, I'm adding a yeah, just a second. Yeah, cool. As you can see, there is specific padding between all my icons, and when I hover on these icons, it is going to redirect me to the href attribute. Whatever I've typed in the href attribute, it's going to redirect me to that particular link. Cool. Now, as you can see, I've decreased the opacity to 0.5 so that I can add a hover, a hover pseudo class on this on these icons. So let's just go ahead and create a hover class so that whenever I hover on it, the user should understand that he or she is hovering on that particular icon. So I'll just increase the opacity now to 1. Just a second. As you can see, when I hover on these icons, the opacity is increasing to 1 so that the user understands that he or she is hovering on a particular icon. So that's great, guys. We've completed the entire first page, and good job, good job. We just need to create another HTML, another HTML file, which is going to be our form. That is when I connect. That is when I click on this connect with me. It should redirect me to a page where I create a form. So let's go ahead and let's create another file. Let's just say next.html. You can write anything you want. And just now I want all these links to be, because I'm going to use the same CSS file. I'm going to use the same fonts. So I just want in the entire head to be similar in my next.html. So I'll just copy paste the entire file in next.html, and whatever is there between the body tag, I'll just remove it out. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Now let's create another section over here. Let's say we'll create another section over here. Section. In that section, I'll create h1 tag with the class heading that we had already used in the index.html, and I'll just write here connect with me. Perfect. Now I'll create a paragraph tag where I'll tell the users what they need to do. So I'll just give it a class name form text, and inside this I'll just tell them like enter your details, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Perfect. And after this, we'll create a form with the class name form body. We don't need the action over here because we're not dealing with any backend right now. And I'll just put, now we need input tags over here so that people can input their information in those input tags. So I'll create an input tag. As you can see, this is a self-closing tag. Okay, we don't need to explicitly close it, and we'll create let's say 3 input tags. One will be for our the name, one will be as an email, and one will be their phone number. So let it be as your text, and another input field where we are going to where the people can add their message. So we'll just create a text area which is much more which is more handy as compared to input tag when it comes to big messages, and we can just take a look at it now. Now, once I click on it, it should take me to okay. First, we need to link it. So once, yeah. So I'll just already put. I'll just show it to you guys. This was the button. Connect with me. Now I'll just make sure that when I click on it, it should take me to next.html. Next, the page that we are creating right now. Okay, cool. Now let's take a look at it. Once I click on this, yeah. So as you can see, oh, I forgot to put this into a container. So I'll just take the entire for this part and just cut it and put it into a container so that we can have that padding that we have created. Let's take a look at it. As you can see, so that padding is added, and we have 3 input fields over here and the text area for the message. The text area looks a bit big, so we'll just change the number of columns to 20 and the number of rows to 5. This looks much better. Now we need to add some placeholder text so that the user understands. Now we know that this is going to be email, this is going to be the phone number, and this is going to be our name. But we want the user to also understand that what he or she needs to put in that particular input field. So we add some we add some placeholder text over here. Let's say this is going to be a name, so I'll just write name over here. Again, this is going to be the email, so I'll just add some placeholder text saying email. And here I'm again going to add the placeholder text. It's going to be a phone number, so let's say phone number. And here I'll add the placeholder text saying like write your message or enter your message. Okay. Now let's take a look at it now. As you can see, I know what kind of field I need to input in this particular field, in this particular input bar, right? So therefore, when I write and when I start writing the placeholder field, placeholder text disappears. Similarly, when there is nothing in the input bar, it again shows the placeholder text. Okay, so now let's just add some classes to it and make it look more beautiful and aesthetic. So let's add a class. Class name input field. I'll just add these classes, all my input fields, as well as my text area. Cool. Now let's go back to our styles.css. Oh, before we go back to styles.css, we just need to create a button where the user can submit it. So let's create a div and the class name button div, which Gurnemat had created for the previous page. And again, we'll just create a button over here and we'll reuse the class, which again was created in the index.html class name button. And we'll just add a submit. Perfect. And let's take a look at it. As you can see, everything looks perfect. Only we need to change the orientation and the CSS for these input tags as well as the text area. Okay, so let's go back to our styles.css, and I'll just create I'll just write a comment over here saying that this is the CSS. This is the CSS for our form. Perfect. And just select them all. And just a shortcut is like, once you select, and if you want to convert it into a comment in CSS or HTML or JavaScript, you just need to select it, then press Control and forward slash together, and it will be converted into a comment. Now let's first select the form text, and we add the font family to, let's say, Roboto Mono, and we'll add a max width property so that it is not on a single line to, let's say, 420 pixels, and we'll even add a line height to it. Let's say 1.5 rem should look good. Yeah, now let's take a look at it. As you can see, the max width is added. That's why it's coming on 2 lines, and we've added some line height and we've changed the font family, so it looks good, much better now. Now let's change the font family for text area as well. Just add Roboto Mono over here, and then we'll just add some margin to the body of the form so that it's not cluttered with the p tag. So we just add margin top, and we add it to them. Okay, this looks much better. And similarly, we'll add CSS to our input fields, which weren't looking that good. So input field, and let's keep the width of each input field, let's say 50%. We'll add some margin at the top and the bottom using the shorthand property. Let's say 1 rem at the top and bottom and 0 at the left and right. We even make sure that each input field and the text area should have a display property, should acquire the entire block. So should acquire the entire row or the block. So we'll just keep the property of display to block. Yeah, this looks much better now. Now we need to make it look more beautiful. So let's just change the background color to that specific shade that we're using for the background of the entire body. We'll add a border, let's say 2 pixels solid, and that neat shade of gray, neat shade of green. And we'll even add some border radius, let's say 5 pixels. And we'll add some padding so that the text isn't cluttered inside. 1 rem at the top, right, bottom, and left. Now let's take a look at it. Oh my god, this looks much better. We are almost there, guys. Code along with me and we'll just be done with it. Just few lines of code, guys. Come on, let's go. Now what we need to do is we need to remove this white outline that's coming, right? And we need to add some hover effect so that the user understands where he or she is inputting the text. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some. Um, so let's just change the placeholder text first to uh, let's say that a specific shade of gray. So we were using hash codes for a color. Let's just use RGBA style to change the color right now for this task. So RGBA. Now the red should be 255. Let's say 255. 255. That's going to be white totally. And the opacity or the alpha property, let's set it to 0.6. And we'll even add a line height property to this so that the text isn't, is perfectly spaced. So let's just keep it to 1.5 as we did for a input field for a form text. Now let's take a look at it. Yeah, this looks much better. Now let's add a pseudo classes for input field. So input when field, when we focus on it, focus means when I click on it, as well as when I hover on the input field, this should happen. What should happen? The color of the text should be black. Then the outline, that white outline that we were getting, should be none. So we shouldn't get any outline, so we'll just keep the value to none. Then we'll change the background color as well. Background color to, let's say, that specific shade of this one, green. And finally, we'll keep the font weight to be bold. Now let's take a look at it. Yeah, as you can see, when I hover on it, or when I click on a particular or focus on a particular input field, it's looking much better. And when I start typing, it's black and bold, right? But you can see there's a small problem over here. When I hover on this, the placeholder text isn't changing, right? Like the color of the placeholder text isn't changing because I can't. It's not visible. The green color and the white color, the contrast isn't right. So what I need to do is I go back and I change the color of the placeholder when, just a second, when I hover or focus on it. So I'll just copy this, and when this happens, I need to change the placeholder text. I need to change the color of the placeholder text to black. So let's say color black. Now let's take a look at it. As you can see, yeah, perfect. This is what I wanted, and this is what you've got. When I hover on it, the placeholder text, the color of the placeholder text is also changing. So well done, guys. Pat on your backs. You've completed the website, the entire website. Okay, we've created the index.html. We've created some, some sections for your education and experience. We've created these icons, social media icons. We've created a form over here, and this is pretty much like good job, guys. Like this is not that easy, but in one session you have grasped all the knowledge, the basic knowledge as well as the intermediate knowledge, and you've created this particular website for yourselves. Good job, guys. Now let's host this website, okay, so that we get a unique URL that you can share with people, or you can share it on a LinkedIn as well. So before we do that, I'll just go back to my PPT and I'll tell you what we'll need to host our website. So Git and GitHub. Now, most of you all must have heard from your seniors or from LinkedIn, or you must have heard about the Hacktoberfest as well. And Hacktoberfest, it is about open source programming, and people create PRs and all. Now, everything, all of these means stuff is possible because Git and GitHub. So I'll just give you a very small example that I like, which will give you an insight about Git. So imagine you're writing a novel with other authors. Okay, now you wrote the first draft and some authors didn't like it. And they changed a few parts from your original draft. Now, this might happen a lot of times, and eventually you'll find out that most of the content is changed. To be more clear, just imagine the game we used to play as kids called as the Chinese Whisper. Now you don't have the original draft and won't be able to find who made the changes and when they made the changes. Now, manually finding all these changes would be time consuming, tedious, and of course, very irritating. Very irritating. So, how do we have all the versions of our work along with the detailed information about each change? The answer is Git, which is the most popular version control system that every developer uses. So Git helps us create a local repository, which are like having small vaults which can store the assets and code base of your entire project, which is of course local to your machine. Okay, that is what Git helps us do. And you can use Git as well as you can use Git using CLI, okay, which is a command line prompt. Okay, I'll tell you about that as well. And there are so many advantages of Git, like which is why every product based company and developer is dependent on it. Project collaboration becomes very easy, which helps to break down a very big project into small modules, and you can assign it to your teammates. Now we can even fix bugs and test new features without affecting our prevailing versions using branches. You can search about branches on Git and GitHub as well. Now you can even revert to some older version of your project, so you don't. So as you have all the the entire detailed information about your commits. Commits means the permanent changes that you have made to your code. You can always revert back to some older version of your project. So you don't need to worry about that, and you can be as adventurous as you want with your code. Now, there are a lot of more advantages and array of features that comes along with Git and GitHub. You can, as we have some time constraint, I'll just stick to these small advantages. And when you go for hackathons, I'm pretty sure you guys will be using Git and GitHub. I'm pretty sure. Okay. So what is GitHub now? Now, GitHub is a graphical user interface or a GUI for Git. Now, as Git helped us to create local repositories, GitHub on the other hand helps us create remote repositories. Okay, now we can push our code to the remote repository from a local repository with just a single line of code, or you can just drag and drop the files. Okay, now so in case of any catastrophic event like you lost your laptop, or something happens to your laptop, your hard disk crashes and all the data from your local or your computer is gone, you can always push the local repo to a remote repo, and when you can go ahead on some other computer, just log into your GitHub account using your credentials, and you can have the entire project that you had created on your other computer. Okay, now open source programming is also flourished because of GitHub. And trust me guys, if you say you're a developer, or if you're applying for any internship or any job related position, people by default consider that you know Git and GitHub. So just imagine how essential and how important Git and GitHub is. So let's go ahead. I hope everyone has created that GitHub account. And once you create your GitHub account, this is how it will look like. Okay, somewhat like this. You'll have a template like this on your page, some web page like this. And go ahead, on the right hand corner, you'll see a plus sign. Click on this and click on a new repository. Okay, now I'll just create a random repository name, or you can just put like portfolio 101. Okay, and I'll write this is my portfolio website. Okay. Now you have two options over here, which is going to be public and private. Public is like anyone who has the link to your repository or your project can take a look at your code, can copy the code, and like there is no restrictions as such on your repository. But if you want to keep it private, then only you can see it, and you can add contributors or collaborators to your project, and only they are allowed to take a look at your code or your repository. Okay, now there are some other things as well, like a readme file or git ignore file and a license. uh, for the time being, if you can go ahead and research about these topics. For the time being, we just need the basic repository to be created. Now we'll just create the repository. Excuse me. Now once we've created the repository, as I said, when you use CLI command line prompt, you'll be using these commands, and basically you can add your files. But now we'll just upload our existing files. So I'll just click on upload existing files, and just you can choose your files, or you can just go to your desktop. You had created that folder. My folder name was IEEE Embark, and I'll just a second. These are all the files that are required in my project. So I'll just select them all and just drag and drop. Okay. Now it will take a minute to upload all your files. Yeah. Just a second. Just a second, guys. I'll just wait from here. Yeah. Now you can just just add a comment for your commit. So you can just write here. Let's say this is just write initial commit. Yeah. Just keep it as crisp as possible. Initial commit. And commit is basically a permanent change that you are making, so that you can have a detailed information about that change. Okay. Now, oh, sorry. Just a second. Just make sure your index.html is uploaded first, and then the remaining ones. Yeah. Just a second, guys. Yeah. Now I have my index.html at the top and the remaining files at the down. Okay, at the bottom. Now I can commit the changes. That will take a minute to upload all your files. Yep. Now once you've committed, you can directly go to index.html and you can have the entire code that you had written. Okay, so it's on a remote repository, and you can always take a look at it and make changes as well. So now we want to create a GitHub page, or we want to host it. So we'll just go to settings over here. When you go to settings, just scroll down, and before the danger zone, you'll find the GitHub pages over here. Just click on none, click on main, click on root, and just save it. Again, branch, it should be main, root, the folder should be root, and just save it. We'll reload the page, and once the site is published, we can have that URL. Site is ready to be published at, means as of now it has not been published. When we get a green tick mark saying that your site is published at this, then you can go ahead and take a look at your website. Now if I go ahead and take a look at it now, it will give me a 404 error. No, okay, it's published. Yeah, just a second. Your site is published, and when I open, you have your website, and you have your own URL over here that you can share it with other people, right? So you've got a URL, you've posted the website, you've created the website, and it works just the way it was working on the live server. Okay, cool, guys. I hope everyone was able to create the website and host it using GitHub pages. I'll just stop sharing my screen, and I'll just ask if you have any doubts. Just stop sharing my screen. You have any like issues or any problems? Just put them in the chat box. Okay, I don't think anyone has any problems. If you have, just put it down in the comment section and Gurnamat will help you out. Till then, let's go ahead. We have a lot of, we have less time and we need to cover two or three stuff more. So yeah. So let's go ahead to Chrome Developer Tools. So once you start coding beautiful websites, you'll even come across bugs. Bugs are nothing but something. If you wanted X but you're getting Y, that is what a bug is. And if you want to debug it, you can use a very awesome tool called as Chrome Developer Tools. So I'll just in short brief you about Chrome Developer Tools. So let's just go ahead to this part. I'll just right click on your web page and press click on inspect, and as you can see, you can just select an element in the page to inspect it. Just click on this, and let's say I want to inspect this h1 tag. So when I click on it, it will show on the left hand side which is the basic tag that I've selected, and the entire css for the tag will be displayed over here. So if I just remove the font weight bold, if I just remove the font size, this is how it will look. Okay, if I just remove the padding at the top, this is how it will look. And if I just remove the color, this is how it will look. Okay, so you can even add padding or margin over here. Let's say I add 20 pixels of margin over here. So, but this is local. This is okay. This is for your particular session. Now, once I reload the page, now let's say if I select that element again, if I change the color to red, just a second, I change. Let's see if I add a color over here. Say color property. You can add properties over here, and if I change the color, say red, red. As you can see, the color is now changed to red. But once I reload this page, all the CSS and the custom padding that I had added right now, padding or margin, will be set to default because I'm not changing this in my VS Code. I'm changing this on my local session on my browser. So this is how Chrome Developer Tools will help you, fix bugs. And I'll just show one small trick to you. Like just go ahead and if you hover on this button, let's say over here, let's say on this, yeah, once you hover on any element you want, and you can find this accessibility over here, which is showing you the contrast. Now it's showing that the black and the green shade contrast is very good. It's giving a green tick mark, which a value of 12.59, which tells you that the user experience or uh, the user who's going to read this text, it's visible, it's readable, right? What if now what if I change let's say the color to say blue. Right, now let's, as you can see, the contrast in the accessibility section has reduced to 1.78, and now it's giving an exclamation mark, which tells you that it's not, the text is not readable. Okay, and you need to change the color combination so that the contrast value increases. And another thing, there are a lot of features, an array of features once you get into the depth of Chrome Developer Tools. Now you can just go ahead over here and click on this toggle device toolbar, and you can take a look at how your website is going to be seen on different devices. Now this, as we created a static website, it won't look that good on different devices, but if you take a look at the font awesome over here, website over here, which I'm assuming it's going to be uh, developed for responsiveness. As you can see, this is how it will look on Moto G4. You can take a look at Pixel 2 XL. This is how it's going to look in Pixel 2. This is how it's going to look on iPad Pro. Okay, so this is how you can use test and debug your bugs. Okay, and responsiveness is also very important as there are a lot of devices that people browse the websites on, right? So Gurnamat will give you a brief introduction about what responsiveness is and how we implement it in our HTML code. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll just quickly share my screen. I hope you can see my slide. So I'll quickly give you a little bit of brief about what responsiveness is. I know I talked a little bit about it before. So, what responsiveness essentially is and why is it necessary? In today's day and age, more than 90% of the people use websites on their mobiles or on, tablets, for example. And you have so many different devices with so many different screen sizes. And you might have noticed at some point at some point in your life that a website looks really weird on the phone, but it looks pretty like it looks all right on the laptop. I'll show you an example of the same. Let's inspect this non-responsive website. So on a Pixel 2, it looks like this. You won't be able to see this list over here because it's just too small. So this is what we mean by a non-responsive design. So it does not respond to the change in screen sizes or the change in devices. It's very important to have a responsive design. And there are multiple ways in which you can make responsive designs, which is, you can use Chrome developer tools to see what your designs look like on different screen sizes. But also you can use media queries in CSS to specify different CSS properties for different screen sizes. So this is an example of a media query where it's taking the max width of a screen as 600 pixels and then it's setting the body background color to light blue. So this background color is only going to be applied for this specific screen size. And that's one example of how you can make your websites responsive. You can also use flex properties to make your websites responsive. And that's pretty much all about responsiveness, and it's very important to give your users a good experience. On that note, I would now like to hand it over to Aditya.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. My name is Aditya, and I'm the guy behind the website that you just implemented. I designed it, so I'm going to teach you a little bit about designing websites, and give you an insight as well as how you can improve the current website that you have. Okay, so I'm just gonna share my screen.
We can't see your screen, Aditya. Could you try sharing it again?
How
Yeah.
I can you see it now?
Yep, I'll just.
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Aditya Madan. I am a manager and graphic designer at DSCVIT. I'm also a UX designer at Spike, and I also design album art for Spotify albums and stuff. So I also have a keen interest in digital marketing, human-centered design, and rock music. So basically, this part of the workshop is for those people who want to get started with UI UX design. I'll tell you what UI UX design is if you want to know about it in the further slides. Um, so basically, this session is also for people who want to know why design is important right now, and how can I improve this website that I just made. How can I style it a little more, and how can I add little animations and stuff. Okay, so design in general is where science and art break even. Like some people confuse design and art as a single thing, but design is not specifically art. Art is basically the paintings, the statues that you see everywhere in museums and etc. They are basically interpretable in any form or manner. Um, but design specifically solves a particular problem, and it is not meant to be interpretable. Like it has to satisfy a specific function as a whole. Okay, so there are multiple forms of design, as you may have heard. Like there's architectural design, interior design, industrial design, which helps you make products. Like the laptops you see is basically comes under industrial design. There's graphic design, designing posters, Instagram posts, stories, etc. And there's a specific branch that we're going to be talking about today that is called UI UX design. um, so in general, design, all of these forms of design are connected by some common principles. These principles are basically inspired by the things around us. the basically things you see every day around yourself, park benches or windows, doors, everything is beautifully designed. So these things that you look around yourself are beautifully designed, and you choose to ignore them because they serve a specific function really well, and you think that is just a door, it is meant to have a handle. But have you ever thought about why it is meant to have a handle? Like, you could just push a door and it would open. Why do you need a handle? So there's a specific thinking that goes behind everything that you see around yourself, and they are called designing them beautifully. Let me show you an example. Like, this is a park bench. This is basically a simple park bench that you see every day. Maybe you sit around it once in a while. So it is basically consists of some metal pieces joined together to form a back and a block to sit on, and it has a metal armrest that is just thick enough to support a hand. Like, it is not so comfy, like you can just put your hand and it is cold sometimes. And sometimes there is no support at the bottom itself. Like, if you put a lot of weight in the center, it might break as well. So why is it designed this way? Why isn't it a comfortable recliner chair in the middle of the park? Like, you can just sit and enjoy and chill for a moment around trees and stuff. So it is designed in such a way because it is inviting enough to let you sit down and relax for a second, but it is not meant for you to sit down for long hours, because people will get cozy and it is a public property, and you will maybe damage it or misuse it. Like, people would lie down for long hours, and some poor people might even lie on it for maybe some for a longer time. So it is designed in such a way that people don't misuse it and do not even damage it. This is a form of design known as defensive design. So basically, defensive design is basically a form of design that functions in a way that limits the misuse and damage of the thing that you are designing. It can be said everywhere on the public property, like public transport is designed that way. Metro that you see every day, park benches, even potholes are designed in such a way that they are strong enough to sustain for a longer time, and they do not have to replace it over and over again. So, talking about UX or user experience design, um, it is a form of design that means designing experiences for users of any product. Like, if I'm a user of a water bottle, that can be considered as a UX design. But nowadays, it is specifically used to talk about designing digital screens for applications and websites that you see. Like the website you just implemented, it was first designed. I'll show you the file that was designed in. So basically, there are two terms under it. There's one called UI, UX design, which I just told you about. It is called user experience design, and there's a part of it called UI design. Now, sometimes people just take one another, like use them interchangeably, but that's not the correct way, or that's not the correct definition of these two terms. UI design is basically user interface design. It is how an interface looks, and UX design consists of how it functions. So UI design is basically a subset of UX design. Uh, Let me show you an example of how it came to be. So there are certain laws of user experience design that designers like me tend to follow when we're designing anything. One of them is one of the basic laws of user experience design is aesthetic usability effect. This law says that a user is more likely to use products which are more aesthetically pleasing. So suppose these are two websites. Both of them are designed by the same company, Apple. It is a pretty famous company. You must have heard about it. But this is from 1997, and this is their latest website from last year. So uh, uh, there's a pretty major difference in design here. But if I ask you that which of these are you going to use, so you might especially choose this one, the 2021, because it is pretty good looking, and that's about it. It's pretty good looking. So that's what this law says. Even if this 1997 website is more usable, you would tend to use a well designed one like the 2021. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the website that I designed, that we just implemented, how I designed it, and the reasoning behind it. So I just open the file. One second. Okay. So this is a tool called UX design tool called Figma. It is pretty popular these days, and it is basically the industry standard for designing websites and stuff. So basically, you might ask me, why do I need to design my website before implementing it? I'll tell you about it. Like, if you had just tried to do this in HTML code, you wouldn't have done it in a pretty efficient way. Like, it wouldn't have turned out this way. So that's why design is pretty popular these days. Like, every major website you see is pretty much designed thoroughly before implementation. So this is the website that you just implemented, and this website also follows the laws of user experience that I just told you about. Like, it is pretty aesthetic, but there are certain extra laws that it follows. Like, when I was designing this, how do I know that there will be this much spacing between these? How do I know? And how do I separate these? So basically, I implemented a layout grid that is a feature of this tool. uh, from this, you can see that this is aligned to the left of this layout grid, and this is aligned to the this column of the layout grid. So basically, it is a 12 block layout grid that is pretty standard in web design, and you need to basically follow it. Not in all sections, like this section is kind of not aligning to this column, and these icons are not. But in some sections, you need to follow this layout grid to make it functional, easy to use, easy to read, and stuff. So here as well, as the form was is aligned and how much spacing is it between, that is all determined by this layout grid that I just implemented. It's the same layout grid for all the web pages. So this is actually a thing that is uh, uh, taken from nature itself. Like, this symmetry, this layout grid is actually seen around you every day, and you choose to ignore it. Let me show you an example. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, this is a modern city, and these buildings are arranged in a specific column, and there are roads dividing it. So you can see the similarity between this and the layout grid that I just shown you. Um, that pretty much follows the same law of UX, that is called symmetry or rhythm. It is basically, you can see it in every website that you see around you. Like, you can open apple.com, google.com. Every website follows a certain layout grid, and in some sections it doesn't, but in pretty much most of the section it does. So let me show you some examples of other portfolio websites that are pretty much better designed than any other website, in in my opinion itself. So one of these is this. It is a website portfolio website of a creative director named Ilya Kalnbaki. He's a creative director, and he has put a lot of effort. As you can see, he has put a cool hover animation, and he's changing this text constantly. And if you scroll down, it zooms in, and it pretty much gives a description as well. So this is all the work of a pretty much a good designer. Like, this website was designed before implementation, and during implementation he added these animations and stuff. So if you want to know, if you want inspiration of web design, you can log on to this website called Awards. It's awards with three W's. It's a pretty famous website that awards create websites all over the web. Like we have portfolio website, product websites, and other. There's a site of the day. For every day a new website is awarded as a site of the day, and this portfolio was a site of the day a month or so back. So this is a pretty good website that you can approach to learn styles, and you can open any website. Like I can open this website and use the developer tools that Anshul and Gurnemat just told you about, and look for the styles and stuff, like how it is implemented and how I can use this color that is behind. You can research all of this. So also there are some pretty good resources that I'm going to tell you about. There's Google's material design. Google has a whole team that is working on designing its applications and website called Material Design Group, and they have a cool website like I'm going to show you called Laws of UX, which has pretty much a detailed overview of all the user experience laws that you can study about. And if you're aiming to become a designer, it is a pretty important website. Like I open it once or twice every day. So also there are some YouTube channels like Future Flux Academy that can help you learn UI UX design. If you want to learn specifically web design, like you want to design websites and stuff, I recommend you watch a free course by Design Pilot. He's a pretty famous Indian designer that is currently working, I guess, for an academy, and that's about it. You can find the links for all of these YouTube channels in the YouTube description down below. We have a resource section, and you can feel free to hit me up if you have any question regarding web design, UI, UX design on these accounts. Like these are my Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn handles. You can contact me 24/7. I'm mostly up till 2 or 4 in the at the night, so you can contact me anytime.
And guys, if you want to take a look at web dev resources or design resources,
Okay, so going great, guys. Now I will brief you about the social media challenge. What you have to do now is to take a screenshot of the portfolio website that you have created, post it on your social media accounts with the handle #EmbarkIEEE. The portfolio websites with the most creative designs, aesthetic or quirky tastes, and obviously with the good reach will be rewarded with the free web dev courses. Follow IEEE AISSMS IOIT social media accounts for the results, which will be announced shortly. I, Tejasri Sakre, on behalf of IEEE AISSMS IOIT student branch and the entire fraternity of the institution, first of all, I extend my most sincere thanks to all our audience. I am very grateful to Anshul Bam, Gurnemat Kaur Dhindasa, and Aditya Madan for their enormous cooperation in organizing this event. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked really hard to make this code along web dev session a success. Today we had the opportunity to gain knowledge about web development and how we can use it further in our career. Don't forget to fill our feedback form to get your e-certificate. And for any more queries, just visit the repo link given in the description box. Thank you all.